Indiana has been steadily adding jobs despite this terrible recession. What have you done as governor that has given Indiana such a competitive advantage?
It is true that we have had consistently the lowest unemployment, best job growth in anywhere in the Midwest. Last few months, with 2% of America in Indiana, we've added 7% of all the new jobs in the country. We think it's about building basically about building the best business climate possible. It's been our sole, our single most important objective from day one. I always say to build the best sandbox in America, taxes down, other costs of business down, infrastructure first rate, and regulation fast and predictable. Anything we can do to make it more likely the next job comes to our state, that's our goal.
You've also been a vocal critic of Obamacare. In the simplest terms, how would you describe the threat it represents to America's fiscal health?
Well, it represents a threat to our fiscal health and to our health generally. I think it's terribly misguided policy. First of all, I think it's a misnomer to ever refer to it as reform. It doesn't reform anything. It perpetuates the system we have with all the senseless features that make healthcare cost too much now. It just makes them bigger. It's clearly based on fraudulent fiscal forecasts. This has all been, it was perfectly clear at the time they passed the bill, but all the data that's come out since shows, as we always knew, that the costs will be even higher to taxpayers. We see at the state level that another cost will be imposed on the 50 states through the mandates in this bill, and therefore either other services will suffer or state taxes will go up too. So it'll add, as we all know, another enormous burden to the debts that the nation has accumulated, but that's hardly the only reason to be worried about it.
How would you describe your governing philosophy, and what do you see as the role of government in society?
The role of government in society is to take those steps necessary to make it more likely that the important parts of society, the private world, of family, of business, and enterprise, upward mobility for free citizens, to make sure that that world flourishes. And we believe that government therefore ought to be very limited in its sphere, but within that sphere, very active. As we said previously, take active steps to encourage hard work and initiative and investment, and those outcomes that lead to people getting ahead for themselves in life. Obviously, public safety. We've taken an activist role in building the infrastructure from which free citizens and enterprises can suspend their activities. And so we believe in government that is limited but vigorous and always thinks of itself as the servant and the enabler of the private sector, not the other way around.
And we face terrorism abroad, a recession at home, and mounting deficits. How can we tackle these problems, and how optimistic are you about America's future?
Optimism is the only operating philosophy that I know that makes any sense. And the old saying, if you say you can or you can't, you're right. I do believe that we will demonstrate ultimately that as Americans we do have the sense of discipline and the commitment to the future necessary to make significant changes, to recognize that the path we're on is not affordable and not sustainable, and it just simply isn't right to live high on the hog a little longer and leave to the future, and perhaps the near future, some unacceptable consequences. But we've got to prove that. The skeptics have always said that this government by the governed would eventually run on the rocks because people would not have that sense of virtue and discipline, but we Americans have to prove that's wrong.